Interesting. So is it more of a self-help? Because I don't know the book.
No, no, it's so I thought it was going to be self-help too. But the person who recommended it to me, they said there were just some great fictional, like some kind of reality-based stories.
Is it
Um,
self-help?
and
Because I don't know the book.
it's a
No,
pretty
no,
good
I thought it was going to be self.
pretty good compilation of things. So it's interesting. Like I'm very involved in the sobriety world, so it's kind of a breakdown in an entertaining way of things that you would hear at meetings and things like that. So
I think we are live on YouTube right now.
cool.
Difficult subject. Very difficult subject for many people.
It is. It is. It touches everyone's life.
I'm very.
That's actually one of the reasons that we're writing what we're writing, because it affects almost everyone, and everyone has a story in some way, shape, or form around it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Question. Some people will be able to just see the video by going to the YouTube Back Niggas Club, right? Once it's live, it'll populate there.
Yes.
Correct, correct. And we're live now.
Oh, I'm on mute. Am I on mute? Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, it's live right now.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. We are live now. Okay, so yeah, you can see they're populating in the chat. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello, hello.
Do we? You guys see any? I see the same 3, 6, 7, 8 people.
You gotta go into YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's not everyone is not here.
No, they're in YouTube.
They're watching us on different platforms.
Yeah, they're watching us.
All right, now I understand.
I love it.
Hello, Kimberly, Alicia. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you, everyone, for hopping on.
Involved in the on different platforms.
Sorry.
Now I understand.
I'm gonna wait for a couple more people to join. Hello. All right.
The name of the book was called Morning Coffee.
The Coffee Maker. The Coffee Maker. Yes.
I got to get that book.
It's interesting. I'm about 150, 200 pages in. So
is it on Audible? Do you know?
I don't know that. I probably should have looked that up, because I was actually going to read it in the car on the way down to the ranch, but I decided just to wait. Yeah, we got a little ranch just north of San Diego, so sometimes we spend a weekend in a tent down there. We've got a big glamping set up out in the woods.
Nice.
That's why when people tell me they have natural fragrances, I'm like, I could double check that.
Okay. Let me go check.
Yeah, exactly. Go wander out in the woods for a little while.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, that was what?
Yeah.
Is it the one by Jack Grishman?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
yep.
Is. Mm-hmm. Because I got TikTok, they're asking me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's the one.
Right. We have Latree, Chantel, Queenie, Dutton. Okay. Hey, everyone. We're going to start. Thank you for joining us on our BCMC All Up in Your Wax YouTube series special. We have our Men and Candles segment part 2. And so I want to introduce everyone to Mr. Brice Oates of Brice the Candle Guy. We have Raffi Arslanian with Thompson Ferrier NYC, and we have Reis Chester of Reis Fields NYC. So we are excited to have you all. Thank you for joining us tonight. And so what we're going to do is ask questions, and you guys in the chat, if you do have a question, you can put it in the chat as well. But we want to do round table, and it's going to be very relaxed. And so what we want to do first is have each of our panelists introduce themselves. So we can start with Brice, and then we'll go to Raffi and then Reis.
Cool. So hi guys, I'm Brice, also known as Brice the Candle Guy. I've been involved in the fragrance world for 18 years. I came into a retail store in West Hollywood called Candle Delirium. I was there for the last nearly 2 decades, getting to know people, fragrances, brands. I spent time flying around the country to all the different trade shows, wound up getting to know the world of fragrance, both from the perspective of the customer, from the perspective of brand owners, from the perspective of brands, and then also from standing on a sales floor, really getting to know people, fragrances, and why they buy them. So my expertise is now, I've shifted focus after leaving Candle Delirium this summer, looking into more of the branding side of things, fragrance development, and helping people get to not only know their own brands, but get to know the market as a whole. So I spend my time really involved in going around to different locations in Los Angeles, like discussing fragrance with people who are still on sales floors, but also with manufacturers and getting to know what it is that goes into every special item that comes off the line.
Bravo.
Thank you. All right, Raffi.
Thank you. My name is Raffi Arslanian. I started my career as a real estate developer, but the family business is really fine fragrance distribution. Since 1950s, the family's been in the fine fragrance distribution. So I did not want to get into it. I went into real estate development, and then 07 happened. During that period of building track housing, a big part of the experience was fragrance in the homes. And I always found that the candle that I used to use, or the fragrance that I used to use or make for myself, didn't have any real presence in the space. So I started making the components and making the design part of each model. So from that, it just developed into something very different. I went into mass market. I was a supplier to TJ Maxx, Home Goods, Marshall, and all those guys in a very big way. Hated every minute of it because there was you don't get paid for your creativity there. Although the sales pace was very healthy. Yeah. Because when you have a great design and you have great, when you're creative, it really helps. But I stopped and I built the brand Thompson Perrier with my wife, and today, 2019, we had 0 sales nearly, and then now we are, luckily we are Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue. We launched 2.5 months ago into boutiques, and we're conquering that as a force. And a lot of new things are coming in, but the category, the candle category, is something that hopefully in the future will segue me back into my real love affair, which is fine fragrance.
Thank you. And Reis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reis Chester from Reis Fields. I have a little bit of different background. From Brooklyn, went to school for business because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had so many interests, and it was either communications, liberal arts, or business. So I was able to do math. So I was like, I'll do business and see where that leads me. But I've always worked I did over 10 years of retail, fashion industry, interior design. And then when I started my business in 2016, I left the whole fast-paced nature of retail to do office management. That kind of gave me more time to be behind a computer and manage my time a little bit more efficiently. But the years of fast-paced New York City retail, dealing with high-end clients with particular taste, it really kind of honed in my love of design and creating things, creating beautiful things, creating useful things. I always liked fragrance and candles, My dad always had oils growing up. My mom always burned candles in the house, especially when guests was coming over. Um, so I kind of fell into candle making. I consider Reese Fields a design house because I've always had dreams of creating other things outside of fine fragrance. It just so happened that before having the opportunity of exploring other things, the candles kind of just took off. And today we announced that we are part of Oprah's favorite things for 2024. And so I don't know how, if I'll get some time to design other things, but that's what I love to do. And that's at the heart of Reese Fields, is creating art, fine fragrance, self-care. I always hate that a lot of the candles that we idolize sometimes are just outside of our price range. And I wanted to introduce something so that more people can experience fine fragrances. I work with Givaudan for the past couple years on creating my fragrances, and they're all based on my life experiences, traveling with my husband, my mom's baking. So being able to tell stories about these things, and you have the fine fragrance with the art at an accessible rate, then you got Reese Fields.
Love it. Love it, love it.
Congratulations on the Oprah thing, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding. That's
Yeah, no, that's a big
Yes,
one.
that's amazing.
I was over here doing the silent clap.
Didn't want to interrupt you, but that's a big one. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yes. All right, so this question is for each of you. So we'll start with Brice, then Raffi, then Reis again. And some of you already kind of touched on this, but what initially drew each of you to candle making? And was there a specific moment when you knew this was something you were passionate about?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, you know what's funny is I've I was doing this for so long. Like I've noticed that almost everyone falls into fragrance in some way, shape, or form because it's not one of those career paths that you grow up thinking, I am going to be a master perfumer, I am going to be a master candle maker, I am going to be like. That's not something, and I'm sure it exists, but it's not something that I've found to be part of many people's stories. And I'm exactly the same way. Like I moved to Los Angeles to become an actor. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I was, it's funny because I actually should have gone to New York because I always wanted to do Broadway and wound up in Los Angeles because of a technical glitch in a system, like they called it theatrical production in New York, and they called it musical theater in LA. And I was just like, oh, well, I want to do musical theater. I may as well go to LA. And they were like, what are you doing here? So anyway, I was at school for 2 years, and one of my friends was the owner of Candle Delirium on Santa Monica Boulevard. And he called me one afternoon and was like, hey, my manager broke his foot. Can you come in and pack boxes for us for the day? And I showed up and I walked in, and like at the time I think I was working at Abercrombie and like part-time at a restaurant. And I walked in, got everything done and left. And after about an hour, I got a phone call saying, where did you go? And I was like, well, everything's done for the day. Like I went home, and he was just like, it takes everybody else all day to do that type of stuff. And I was just like, well, then they're like pushing you for dollars because like it only took 45 minutes to finish this. And he was just like, fine, just keep coming back. And so, I kept showing up. I really got to know, like as I was packing boxes, like there was beautiful packaging, there were beautiful fragrances, and I would open everything up. I would get to know the fragrances, and then I wanted to know more details about it. So I would really delve into like the fragrance notes. I would really delve into, like what made this product special, what made this product $100, what made this product $150. And I just found it fascinating, like this whole world. And it brought me back to almost to childhood, when I would sit at home and I would remember when my mother would get ready for like a night out with my dad, and the smell of certain perfumes. Like there was this iconic perfume bottle with like an exclamation point as like the topper. And I really remembered sitting there and being enthralled by fragrance because it's so heavily involved in all of our lives. And it wasn't until I fell into this job in candles that I realized how involved fragrance is in all of our lives. And then I developed a passion for the people who were coming into the shop. That was really the biggest thing that got me involved in fragrance. Obviously being an actor, obviously being like in this town full of interesting people, I got to know like why people were buying certain fragrances. I got to hear their stories. Like I would have people go over to candles sometimes, pick it up and burst into tears. And I would have to know like what it was that caused that emotion to pop out. You know, and the olfactory is the strongest sense tied to memory. And I'm sure we've all heard that before, but it's also incredibly powerful and so deeply moving. You know, just getting to know all these stories behind these brands and then eventually moving into branding and consulting and doing all of that. I fell into it, but I fell in love when I fell into it.
Okay, Raffi.
Very interesting. The way I got into the candle world was I had to have a lot of control for the environment. You're talking environment, Brice. Control of environment is when you're developing real estate, you know, the way the consumer sees something, the way they approach it, the way they enter, so everything is so well curated. The one part in real estate development is really falls apart is what does this house smell like? And then when a consumer leaves, what does that person remember from that house? Because it's all like, how do you reinforce that? So what I used to do is I used to make these little concoctions of fragrances and then never give the customer a card or a phone number. Like I would never give him a card. I would give him a little tin with my phone number in the bottom of it. And guess what they always did? They never threw that out. Cards, brochures, everything got thrown out. Candles never got thrown out, no matter what. I always used to get a phone call, you know, this model number or whatever. And that connection, when you say, how do you embed a connection to a moment? You know, when you're able to create a fragrance that, no matter what the fragrance is, that person has a particular type of emotion towards that moment, and that recalls it. So every time they're smelling it, because they're not throwing it away, they're like, oh, so I'm in their psyche all the time. It was all about sales for me. For me at that time, it was all about sales. And then then I started developing, okay, now the table started getting full of fragrances, full of this, and what is the essential oil? Like I would start buying the components, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a perfumer. I never wanted to be a perfumer because that's a complicated job. It's really complicated. I mean, a perfumer, hats off to them. You know, they say there are more variations of perfume that there are stars in the universe. That's how complicated it is, because one micro dot changed the whole complexity of a fragrance. So I didn't want to be a fragrance house, a perfumer. But what I did want to understand is human behavior. For me, human behavior is a huge part of every nuance. Like we will spend, and this is not a fragrance related, but even like this morning, we must have spent 5 hours looking at our data to see what's the behavior, how is this happening? Well, then you listen into how we develop from one to another. But I've always been what I call reverse engineering kind of guy. I always I know where I want to get to. How do I build the path backwards and then go that way, right? So, you know, I knew that emotion was a big part of it. Then I love building, which meant, oh, now I want to build these little components of the pieces of the candle. So I traveled to China, I traveled to Hong Kong, I traveled to Spain, wherever they made these pieces, you know, so where ceramics are made, metal is made, glass is made. I learned the entire thing. So little by little, I got into it not by design, like everyone else, like, you know, as you're saying, not because that was my passion. My passion was, I like to build stuff. I love to build brands, because even in real estate, you're building a brand because there's that credibility that you build when somebody comes in and says, oh, this guy knows how to finish his project, right? Punch lists and so forth. You know how builders are notorious to be, bad, but so I don't want to say assholes, you know?
That's a good word to choose. Good word.
Yes. So, and and I remember the days when there are, when you have open houses, I used to accompany the realtor, and I'd be like, smell this. What do you think? What do you think of this one? Does it smell like, and they used to say, well, we're supposed to make cookies in the house. Like, it's an empty house. There's no one living here. You can't be baking a cookie with an empty house. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm like, no, we're not going to we're not going to bake cookies. We're not baking cakes. We're not making bread. We're going to put beautiful fragrances so they have a certain experience. So that's how mine started.
Cool.
Nice. All right, Reese.
I agree. You kind of just fall into it. But again, I kind of have a different start in it. At the time when the concept ignited I was working for a Canadian loose tea company. So although like my dad always had oils and colognes, my mom always had her perfumes and always lit candles, but not j just common candles, nothing extraordinary. So it never really clicked when I was home. But when I was working for this loose tea company, we had over 150 different blends of tea, and we always got new ones. And the customers were always so excited to come in and smell these teas and taste these teas. And the company did a really good job at packaging and creating merchandise to go along with these teas. And so I was always volunteering to do shipment. I was that person who wanted to cut open. I think Brice kind of like touched on it, to go into the new package and see what's new and really examine everything, looking at the bottom, where's things being made and distributed. And they started doing candles based on some of their most popular teas, and looking at the warning label and seeing, okay, so Illume is pouring these, calling Illume, hey, hot. So, and it wasn't like creating a business or anything. I was just intrigued and interested, and working with all those blends of teas, the smells, and seeing like, well, I think blending this and this would work well together, and being my own kind of chemist in that space. That kind of started the flame for me. And when I left that job is when I went to an office manager position, so that I did have a little bit more time. I took from all those years of retail and design, started actually really doing that, starting going to packaging expos, trade shows, starting to learn the paper mills, and like and that's, I think, again, what makes me a little bit different is like the perfumer. When I first launched the brand, we launched with 5 fragrances, and I knew that I wanted to work with a perfumery to create something different. Although like all the packaging looked the same, I knew that what was gonna kind of stand me apart was if I was able to create fragrances that I was able to talk to, that resonated with me, that people would resonate with that. And then expanding it further, creating the cement collection, which is really like taken off because, again, of the difference that it brings into the candle space. So I think that's kind of what got me started in candles, was just a snowball of design and being able to literally design different components, whether it's the packaging, the scent, the vessel, whatever, and it took off. Yeah.
Nice.
And now
Cool.
Oprah's favorite thing.
Yeah. Now yep.
Love the story.
Published yet?
Pardon?
Has it been published yet?
Yeah, it announced today. So the digital is live, and the publications hit the stands on the 12th.
So are you seeing reaction to the product?
So far, yeah, I had to mute my
He's
phone.
like, we have nothing left.
That's the dream.
That's why when you asked in the pre-call about are we ready for the holidays, I stood silent because my holidays have started. So
Yeah.
Who's making your candles?
Me, me
Oh,
and Lee.
you better like on the clock leave pretty soon.
Right?
Well, that's why
This is
the 8
not
o'clock.
productive time for you here.
That's why the 8
We've got
o'clock
great
worked for me.
referrals if you need them.
Exactly. I mean, that was a big part of the wanting to do the business as well, is my personality is very independent. If things didn't make sense, I was questioning why. There's a better way, an efficient way. So yeah, now I get to decide when I leave that studio and take 8 p.m. Conference calls.
So do you have the components to deliver on Oprah?
Oh yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, just sometimes the components are not there.
In terms of, what do you mean?
Like the vessels, because she says this is your favorite thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's Raffi. It's so funny you asked that question, because that would be one of my first questions for any manufacturer too, or any manufacturer or candle maker too, because it's like the holdup a lot of the time. It can be in fragrance, it can be in packaging, it could be in wax, it could be in on a boat stuck in the Suez Canal. Like it's like there's so many moving parts when it comes to producing these things. Like I'm exactly like you. My brain jumps on top of that, and it's like, okay, how do we deliver for Oprah?
Yeah, that's exactly. That's why I always say in our office, I say you have to be prepared for Oprah calling you out. If you're not prepared, then you're not prepared really, because then you're like tiptoeing on the fringes. But you have to be prepared for Oprah.
You want to hear actually a funny story that, I mean, could be helpful to some of the people watching. So when I launched the brand in 2016, I immediately jumped into a trade show, New York Now, and that was 2016, 2017. So within like a year and some change, jumping into a trade show with a product that looked the same, but 5 cents. That's when I met the Oprah team.
Well, back then they used to walk around the show.
They still walk around because I've seen them a couple times. At least
I've seen them a
the
couple
last
times.
show, it was embarrassing. The last show.
Which show are you talking about?
New York Now.
I stopped doing New York Now a long time ago. I've been doing Shop Object for the couple years.
No, New York Now. Oprah's team used to walk around.
So to go back, that's what it took us that long to put all of the pieces together. And Raffi, you I just saw a video that you posted talking about the incremental steps, and I agree 100%. Like a lot of people would have either jumped at that opportunity and not have been ready for it back then, and then business totally just sank from there. But I want to have all my pieces together. So that was part of that piece of leaving New York to come to Newark, New Jersey, to have a bigger, more affordable space to be able to crank out more stuff. It was all the little pieces that led up to this, and yeah, we've been ready.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to add to that, saying that sometimes your wish is really your downfall, and I know that firsthand. I went to Atlanta show. I showed my first time in high design, and in 2 days, if I tell you the numbers, we did $148,000 in sales in 2 days. I did not know how to deliver that. I only delivered $30,000 because I did not have the components. I did not have the components. I'm like, yeah, take the order. It's okay. Take the order. We'll figure it out. Sometimes you can't, like you said, you don't have the box, you don't have this, you don't have that, the fragrances, and then the guy's getting pissed off. And then once you have a bad taste with people, they don't want to know you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So there should always be a plan for stuff like that. I agree with you, Raffi.
Yeah.
I've had many experience at many trade shows. And you always want to write the sales. So that's one of the things. You always want to write the orders. You always want to make sure that you are closing with people who are interested in your product. But there is a very, very, very fine line that if you, I'm the king of perpetuating the phrase under promise, over deliver. Because if you under promise and you over deliver, people will not only have a lot of respect for you, they will also have a lot of positive reactions to the things you're doing, and they'll build trust in the brand. And that is one of the hardest things to do with a brand, is build the trust with the consumer, because that is, at the end of the day, what perpetuates your sales in the future.
We spent enormous amount of time doing that. I mean, to your comment, I always say that here with us, every action that we take, you have to pretend that it's going to be on the front page of the New York Post. If you can't have your decision on the front page of the New York Times or New York Post, then your decision is wrong. The whole world's got to see it. Whatever you're doing, the way you treat customers, the way you do things, every decision you make, be it for or pro, for business, whatever it is, if you can't have it on the front page of the New York Post, don't make that decision.
1000% agree.
All right. These are great answers, you guys. Thank you so much. Raffi.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
I'm all ears.
Raffi, thank you. You were one of our keynote speakers at the Ohio conference, and we loved every bit of it. Thank you so much. My question for you is, what initially drew you, where do you find your inspiration for your unique designs, and do you find certain environments or experiences influence your creative process more?
That is an ever-evolving answer. As a brand matures, it starts somewhere, and then they begin to find themselves, and then they let go of the things that are not brand related, and they become tighter and tighter and tighter. Initially, I had two things that I love. Number one, I love nature. So a lot of my emotions come from nature. And then the other thing was, I happen to love the idea of when you have something physical, the brand has to be silent, right? I'm a big fan of silent, quiet luxury, silence, be it in process. There's a thing where it says, when you know, and when you don't know, you just don't know where the quality is. But unless you understand it, so a lot of my design comes from nature. If you look at everything that I have, it's from nature. We're launching a new line now, and it has zero branding on it. Like, you couldn't be able to tell. There's no branding on it, none whatsoever, and that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Right? There's no branding, none whatsoever.
I'm really intrigued by this. I cannot wait to see that.
Well, the idea is, when you have a home, right? Your home is your space. Your home is not an intrusion by Prada or Chanel or whatever, right? By by Rigaud or by Nest or whatever. It shouldn't be an intrusion by them, right? But that is a mature home, right? Like I said, everybody goes through stages. They go through a stage of, they plaster Hermes everywhere, and the Chanels and whatever else, and Tom Ford book, and then there comes a time when they throw away the Tom Ford book, and they throw away that, and they just want an amazing quality product. They want that, for example, that back there is all feather in there, right? But that it doesn't look fantastic, but I know what it's made of. I know what it feels like. So nature gives me all my inspiration, and then I'm trying to figure out how to become relevant in other people's homes in ways that I am not intrusive.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, Raffi, because what I found in my experience on the sales floor that I was on, a lot of the time, the vessels themselves and all of the branding that's on the front of products, people would be like, okay, can I remove this? Can I get this out of here? And there's certain brands that you want people to know you spend a lot of money on that candle. So, there are moments where it works, and there are moments when it doesn't work. And it's finding that balance from what I've witnessed when people are actually in the space shopping. It's finding that balance of how much branding do I need to put into this? How much branding do I need to take out of it? What market am I meeting? What market am I not meeting? Like, you have to find, I call them cheerleaders. You have to find the cheerleaders for your brand. And, you know, I love exactly what you're saying, in terms of, you know, you do go through phases. Everyone goes through phases.
Brice, I'm going to say this. You know, I talk about Madison Avenue. You see a woman or a man so well dressed, right?
Yeah.
It's just a guy with a pair of jeans, or a girl with a pair of jeans, white tank top. She's got a beautiful belt on, great pair of shoes, a spectacular handbag, well put together. There's something so special about that person. Or a guy who knows how to, you know, has just a beautiful jacket on with, you know, with the buttons that are like open on one side, and he's just walking down with confidence. No branding on him, right? But there's a smell to this. There's like this. Why are you staring? You know, and you look at that is so well put together.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm sort of like, I wish we can all get there, but that's a complete journey, by the way. That's a journey that if your mind is there, and then once you become that, then there's a whole group of people that love that and will gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have the other brands. It's because listen, I know I live in New York, we're Upper East Siders, and I know what the Park Avenue ladies say. Like, we don't want branding, man. We just don't. We like our Laliques, we like our Baccaras, we like our Limoges, whatever we have. But I don't want a candle that has all the names on it. I just don't. So.
I love all the brand name dropping you're doing. Everyone's writing them down like furiously, writing up Scrap de la Leaks.
You know, there was a glass company called Steuben. Do you remember the Steuben? No?
Oh yeah. Yes, I do.
Oh my God, I used to love Steuben. I mean, you know, they were made in Corning, New York. I used to go to their factory and check them out. Oh yeah, Steuben was Corning, New York. And then,
cool. Okay.
Yeah, such beautiful things. But then they went bankrupt. Yeah. They couldn't hold that perfect quality because there was no market. The market wasn't there.
Yeah, it's tough. And that's, I think, one of those things that I run into a lot when I'm helping products brand is it's like, you know, I at one point had someone say, oh, my brand is Hermes, but we're just not there yet. And I struggled with that because I was just like, okay, but do you have $20 million to throw behind it right now so that you can get into that market, break into the marketing, get to those clients, get like, there's a whole process to whichever route a brand wants to take in terms of growth. I mean, Reis, congratulations on the Oprah thing without the Hermes marketing budget. Like, that's amazing. You know, very, very proud of that. You should be. That's an awesome accomplishment. You know, and it's all about the stepping stones getting to that point. I mean, you were just talking about having been on the trade show floors, what was it, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when you first met them?
Yeah. Like
yeah, and look, it's all the progression leading to that point. And so, you know, maybe 9 years ago, you wouldn't have been ready to fill all of these orders starting on November 1st, leading up into the holidays on the O list. But, you know, it's one of those fascinating parts of all of these stories, like having now been in it for going on 19 years. You know, I really find interesting the steps different brands took to get to where they are, and none of it looks exactly the same. Like, that's why I always say, like, a job as a consultant, like, it's you can really help a lot of people because nobody is going to have those same steps, and every problem is going to be unique and have its own unique set of circumstances that you have to work solutions around, that you have to find ways to deal with, and that you have to keep your head high and move forward. It's so interesting to watch this. So, you know,
I'm going to jump in one time. One thing I'm going to say. Let me say this. I think one of the things that everyone should know that journey actually paints the picture of the brand identity.
Yeah,
it really does. That journey paints it, because if you look at, for instance, for example, Bottega Veneta. Yeah, what is the identity of Bottega Veneta? The weave, right? But how did it start? I'm sorry, my alarm. Hang on. She didn't have the money to buy leather. What did she buy? She bought the strips. She didn't have money to do what she wanted to do. So she had it put together, and she created the weave out of her having no money at all to put it to, and that's what created the identity. That struggle along the way created a brand identity by itself and by default. So I think, as you move along, that journey has to be very embraced so that you can say, yes, something is going to come out of it on the other end.
Absolutely. Again, the storytelling is almost the most important part of any brand. I truly believe that it's the people behind it, it's the story of the brand, and it's the quality of the work. It's interesting to watch how different people deal with different situations. I was having a conversation with someone else. I'm working on another project too, involving branding in general consulting, and just looking at branding kind of in depth from a very personal and internal place. And take Martha Stewart, for example, guys. If you haven't seen the Netflix show, it's on my watch list. I started the first episode, but talk about fascinating stories, and that was not the plan. To be standing on stage with Snoop Dogg doing all of that was not the plan. She just knew it wasn't what it was. So, and it's the same thing with what I've found successful candle brands to be is, someone will come out with an idea and it'll start, I've watched certain brands grow from like small little votives, a set of 5 into these multinational corporations. And, all of it was stepping stones along the way. And they were meeting consumer demands. They were meeting these needs that these people had, and they were paying attention to their customers. I will talk until I'm blue in the face about paying attention to where the money's coming from, because it will always tell you what you need to do next.
All right, so Reis, this one is for you, my fellow New York. I'm from the Bronx, though, but New York to New York. You spoke about your retail experience. You spoke about, leaving and then working with the tea company. How did you bring all of that experience into your candles now?
I think a big part of it is that customer retail, or that customer experience. I genuinely like interacting with people. That being said, I also have that New York mentality where like I can cut off the BS real quick. I'm extremely personable and I like to talk to people. And I think through that, that same curiosity about how something was made or developed, it ties into how does this product, or how does this make this person feel, this customer, how does it make them feel? And talking to them and learning, I think the customer service and the retail of selling, right? It's like I find they're two different, right? Retail, your purpose is to sell, but customer service is, is to get to know how the other person, how you can help them. And those are two things that I genuinely like to do: make money and
make money first. No,
absolutely.
So that's what a lot of that reason. And again, because and New York retail is different. It's a different beast. Literally working through Soho with every major brand that decided to have a store down there. That's how I kind of building the brand was able to kind of direct into that like luxury lane. I always know that's like a topic of discussion for people, like what is luxury? How do you brand that? How do you brand that in a category that a lot of people feel is saturated, such as candles? But having that customer service, that's where a lot of like when brands, stores that I reached out to early didn't take our candles or take our orders or whatever. Not for nothing, Candle Delirium was one of them.
I know. I know. I'm so sorry.
No, no, it's not. I say it to say that every you're not going to get everything. I think if you have to know like what your attention for your brand and what success means to you. And for me, although I like making money, it wasn't about that necessarily. It was for me to be able to control my own space, do what I want, be able to express how I want to express, and that's where the artistic nature of our brand. Came from. And I think that's why what makes this a little bit different. I knew that that was going to have to be something. Working in retail and working with so many people, I know that it has to be different, especially if I wanted to make it have longevity. It had to be different. And so that was with working with perfumers first, and then that became into actually making art in my vessels. So although we've been doing cement for the past couple of years, I've also been learning ceramics. And so that is a category that we're going to, release soon. And I love working with other artists and creatives. So there is a ceramicist out in California by the name of Diana that I've been working with on a limited release ceramic vessel as an entry to show what this design house is capable of. So I hope that answered the question.
No, I love Reese. I love that you talked about the customer experience, and I mean, look, even I'm not with Candle Delirium anymore, so it's like it's one of those things. Like you can put these things up on a pedestal, and like a lot of the decisions I would make when I was buying, it was like I had a team of people, so there were four of us that would all pass these brands around. It was like, okay, does it match with this brand? Does it match with that shelf space? Is it right for this? Like, and there were so many moving components that a lot of the time it didn't come down to the brand itself. It came down to the store itself. And so sometimes you have to create either your own space for that and create your own consumer experience and create your own stuff, or you have to align with certain brands at the right time or certain retail spaces at the right time. And it's, guys, they say timing is everything. And it really is so true. And again, it goes back to what Raffi was saying about, do you have the components for the O-listed stuff? Because our brains immediately went timing. And it's like a lot of the time the universe comes down to that. And, it's creating your own luck in some ways, creating your own experiences in some ways. It's getting to know all of the opportunities that are out there, because even in a saturated candle market, guys, there's still room for more. Every year, I see another brand that just boom, straight for the moon. And a lot of the time they took advantage of an opportunity they got and they ran with it, because it all does eventually snowball, wherever it winds up. You get out what you put in. They say it all the time, and it is so, 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 so true. But it does. It really will start to snowball, and it's one thing that builds on top of another. And you don't always have to get every opportunity and take every opportunity, but the ones that pass by, just make sure you know why they do. Make sure they're not passing by because of someone or because you yourself are not taking action. That is kind of what I would say is one of the biggest missed things and one of the biggest pitfalls of brands.
Hey, Brice? Come back on that one. Sorry, Raffi. I'll let you go. But the timing, are you going to be pouring your own cement vessels for Oprah? Reis?
We've been the studio we've been working since summertime. Okay. Because we also have a show, one of a kind trade show in Chicago the first week of December. So yeah, we've been cranking it out for a while now in preparation for Oprah, the holiday season, and Chicago.
Oh, so you knew about Oprah then? That it was coming?
Yeah.
How far in advance did they tell you?
They asked for samples like in Q1.
Mm-hmm.
But when did you know that there was a public information coming out?
That I was officially accepted.
Yes.
That was about
You know where I'm going, Brice, with this.
I do. I know exactly where
I'm
you're
trying
going.
to figure out how he's prepared.
I know
But
exactly.
you know what though, and I think that that leads into my statement about although I like making money, that's not what the end goal for me creating this business. This
Yeah.
business
Again,
was
I'm just curious. Like, when did they
no,
tell
no,
you?
for sure. But I get that a lot, especially when they hear that I do make my cement vessels in studio. And that's because I like to do it.
I love it.
I
I
could
love it.
have I could have continued to do the original collection that we released, our classic collection, which is the glass. That to me is our sampler. That's for the people who don't want to purchase the cement collection or any of our custom cement pieces and our collaborations. That's where they can test our scents. But I like, and again, I've been for the past couple years been learning ceramics because that's what I intend to. I like to do it. If you don't like to do this, then you're going. And I said when you don't love to do what you're doing, then your end goal is always kind of trying to chase the store or not. you- You're gonna find yourself in the circle of the saturated market. What do I do next? Because you're looking at everything else. You're
Right.
looking at you're taught you have too many mentors, you're in too many YouTube videos, you're trying to soak in too much, and that's when you feel overwhelmed and burned out. I love to do what I do, which is talking to those perfumers and being hands-on and creating those things, and also being in my studio, blasting my music, hanging out with my husband and my dog, and creating. Now, when it becomes, and we've been fine ever, since. When it comes to a time where like we are just overwhelmed and we can't fulfill it in house anymore, then we'll also take that as a good sign of, well, what do I want to do next? Again, going back to what the success looks like to me. Do the next step could mean more work for me? Is that what I want to do? Or do I want, we love to travel, and that's what a lot of our scents are based off of, my husband and I. Um, I number my scents. So number two was actually inspired by me proposing to him at the Eiffel Tower. So it's French rose, and that it's my life. I would never sell Reese Fields to the many hawks who like to purchase niche indie brands.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and that I hope that really touches somebody who's listening, because I know I get that as I reach these different levels of milestones, I often get, how do you do it? And now with Oprah, how did you get it? How did you do it without them knowing that we've been talking for 7, 8 years? So it's not something that just popped up because they had a quota to fill for this year's publication. Um, and so just define what your success looks like, what it is that you want for your brand versus what you're seeing on. And anyone who follows Reels Fields, you'll see that I have less than 100 photos on there. But to Rafi's point, if it doesn't belong on the front page of Times or whatever publication, then don't post it. That's exactly how I live. And fortunately, my husband is an amazing fine art photographer specializing in film photography. So all of the photos and content that we have on our Instagram and website is all him. We do it in our studio as well. Um, it's a family run business, brothers and cousins in the studio to help out as they need. And we're going to keep it a family business and grow as the opportunities present themselves.
Well, you touched on something. Well, you still didn't answer the question, by
Which was?
the way. I'm waiting for the answer. When did they let you know that you're going to be the public is going to be, hey, you're it? How many months in advance?
Yeah, that was like the summertime, like June.
Yeah. Usually they do it 2 seasons ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, do you do the molds for the cement? You're doing molds. I'm assuming that's all molded. You're doing it with silicone. I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And you do slip casting, right?
We do both. We have the cement. We do have the slip cast. Both, and then I do the glass as well, but also in mouth like blown and torched and so forth. So all of that. But I'm gonna say this: the fact that your husband is a photographer is a big
100%.
communication asset that you have. I'm going to give a lot of credit to him. I don't know him. I don't know I didn't know up until now, but having a way to communicate through photography is such a big battle. It's a huge battle. And I spent 2 summers learning photography, and I take my own photos now. I can't stand having photographers. So, and now we're exploring 3D photorealistic creations where I can manipulate the light and everything else. So we have a team now building these virtual. When I say virtual, you would never be able to tell if it's real or not. But then there's motion behind it so that you can see how. So like in your case, for example, your cement, right? You start with a shape and you can do so much you can do, but they have to be digitized. So that the fact that you have a photographer in the family, because half the time it's the storytelling is in the photography.
Well, I think that's a big battle for a lot of brands, if I'm honest, even outside photography and packaging. I find are 2 of the biggest things that I immediately, when someone is asking me about things that I'm like, you shouldn't even be asking that first, because the first question is packaging and your photography. And so, no, I'll always accredit that, and especially because he's an artist himself, so specializing in film, he develops his own film, and so that's what he helps to bring to Reisfields, and yeah.
I mean, you can take a simple 9.5 ounce apothecary jar and with a cap on it, and then make such a romantic story out of it. And it'll entice someone to buy it, if it's reasonably priced, you have a home run. And to your point, Brice, it could take off. It really could take off. It's a lot of it is in, look at what happened to what was the Otherland, when they started.
That's one of those brands that the second I saw it, I was just like, that one is going to take off this year, and it did. It was off to the races. And guys, it was overnight. I see. And by the way, Reis, I hope that when you're ready, the right hawk comes along to take your brand off your hands or to the next level. I always wish that for people, because there does come a point, even with labors of love and with passion, that it's time to move on, or to take it to that next extreme. But there are hawks that will try to get you to do it sooner. You'll know when it's right. You really will. And it's like, I can see the passion behind the brand. You're so involved in it. Like it'll for sure happen.
For sure.
Yeah. Can we talk about something else? Another subject that's as important. It's not failures, but where you get into a store that the store becomes your handicap. For example, when you do something exclusive, sometimes, brands go in and they go, oh, this is a Sephora exclusive. And then they get financially destroyed. Let's say if I was going to go to, and the reason I bring this up, because that set me back. We got into Barney's, and Barney's wanted me to have a specific thing. We made it, we created it, and then they went bankrupt.
Yep.
Now I have all this inventory. Like, what do you do with this? Unpaid. They went bankrupt, and now was that a success really, or was that a failure, or was that a bump in the road for me? That was a problem.
Right. And I can't tell you how many brands, when that happened, I was speaking with, and they were just like, we don't know what we're going to do, because, Barney's is a large business, and a lot of the brands that they had in there were these like one-off, like great fashion houses and things like that. But they were smaller brands, kind of off the beaten path. Barney's had really cool buyers. But you can't, it's funny because I always tell people, like, your retailers are your first line of customers. And so you have to think of them as like the lifeblood of the business. You have to think of the retailers as the lifeblood. If you put all of your time and effort into getting into this one giant conglomerate retailer, and then they become 95% of your sales, and then they tank, That's it.
Yeah.
And like it's the death knell for many businesses when things like that happen. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of respect to be had for many of those stores, for Barney's, for like I know there are some other department stores that have had troubles with that, and they have made a good name for themselves. They do have customers.
Saks today. Saks isn't paying.
Right. Well, and it's again, it happens, and I've seen it happen, but it is one of those things that a lot of those stores have built a lot of trust with their customers, and so they do have good sales. But if you put all of your faith in one customer, like when I was on the retail sales floor, if I had put all of my faith in a single customer and them showing up every week on time, they could go out and get in a car accident. Like it may not be bankruptcy. It may be a car accident. It may be a manufacturing issue. It may be a Suez Canal issue. There's so many different things that can cause a clog in the pipeline that, to your point, making sure that you are paying attention, close enough attention to your business, that you know your customers, you know how many you have, you know where the money is coming from, where it's going, and you get as diverse as possible. That was always one thing that I was constantly paying attention to, was the diversity, not only in customers, but the diversity in the types of vendors that we had in the store as well, because there's a balance. One of the things that I try to pay attention to, especially when I'm talking to people, is the balance that you have within the business, because it will dictate the health of your business, especially if you become dependent on a single retailer.
But those failures are important. I'm going to take a 2-minute break because my chestnuts I don't want them to burn.
Don't burn your chestnuts.
I got to put water in my chestnuts. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
I'll bet the fragrance in there is amazing right now.
Brice, nice to see you again. By
It's
the
great
way,
to see
this
you
next
too.
question is for you. If I could get back to it. So being the huge buyer and expert that you are, I know that you've come across, candle making is traditionally, or the assumption is that it's a female-led industry. Are there any challenges that you can recall that come with being a male maker?
It's funny because I can't really speak to that because as LGBT, people just kind of assumed like that I automatically have an expertise in it. So I didn't run into a lot of that pushback. However, I did experience that scenario with certain brands, either that were in the shop or certain individuals who were trying to get brands off the ground. And they were running into pushback on it as straight males trying to be perfume experts, even though a lot of perfumers are. And it's interesting that people have that assumption in the fragrance world that it would be female dominated, because I didn't see it that way. Like it was a very even split in terms of women and men owning the brands, but a lot of the time it would be a female face at the front of the brand. It would be a female face that was pushing fragrance out, because for a long time, fragrance was predominantly marketed to women. It was seen as an afterthought for men, but it was marketed to women. Like women should be the ones that always smell nice. And I don't know if all of you have noticed it, like in the last 15, 20 years, there's been a lot more focus on the male market. There's been a lot more focus on getting men to go out and be the ones who are buying the fragrances and fragrancing the homes. That is one of the seismic shifts that I've seen from the beginning, because there were brands when I started out in my role that were, very heavily focused on fruits and florals. And then all of a sudden, we switched to these really dark, masculine, woodsy fragrances. And, it's always a pendulum. So there's always going to be a market for all of those fragrances. They wouldn't exist unless there was a market. However, there are certain seasons and there are certain times when something will come back into focus, and there are times when it will fall back out. One of the other things I tell brands all the time is don't place all of your, business capital, and I don't mean capital as in finances, I mean capital as in efforts, sway, operations. Don't base it all on a trend. You know, because
Never follow a trend.
people will try to do that, and they'll try to make brands that they think are super original. And then I have to go to Instagram and flip up Instagram and be like, it's been done 500 times. And I have to walk over to like stores and be like, okay, it's in this brand, it's in this brand, it's in this brand, it's in this brand. You can't follow trends. You can release something that's trendy. Like, don't get me wrong, like as a brand, you can release something that is on trend. But if you want to transcend a trend, you have to do something that's more either in line with the brand, or that's more in line with something classic, something that has longevity.
Do you see?
That's what Reis was talking about too. Reis
Yeah.
was talking about
Exactly.
he wanted to make sure that everything stayed within what he wanted to do and not follow anybody else and look outside and let all those outside influences influence his vision. So
Yep.
who knows?
If you're gonna, yeah, Reis, if you like, exactly to your point, you know, there's so many outside influences. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is going to want to tell you what they think of your fragrance, what they think of your design, what they think of this. There are, like, you should have some people that you really respect their opinions, and that when they give them to you, you take them to heart. Those are the people who tell you no. Just for the record, it's the people in your life that tell you no, and that's not right, and that will give you their honest feedback, that are actually really good for brands, because it'll either challenge you to rethink, or it will reinforce your position. You know, one of my primary roles, and I always used to say it after packing boxes and sweeping floors, moving into general management, buying, consulting, building a business from the ground up, essentially, was to not be the yes man. I have never been a yes man, nor will I ever be a yes man in an organization, because it is not my job to say, oh my God, everything this business does is amazing. It's my job to walk in and be like, how can I make this better? How can I make this more profitable? How can I make it more creative? How can I make it more inclusive? How can I make it, you know, more fun? What am I paying attention to? How am I going to reorganize what I'm walking into to leave it better than I found it? Give a dime for my nickel, or a nickel for a dime, or a dime for the nickel. Yeah, dime for a nickel. That's what it is. So, you know, that's one of my primary focuses. I know some people, they do like to be surrounded by yes people. They do like to be surrounded by people who are like, okay, we're all about this vision. And you should have those people at a business too, at a certain point. You know, your salespeople that are selling your stuff should really believe in the brand. That's something that always should be done. But they also should, behind the scenes, be saying to, you know, like a sales manager, hey, how do we reorganize these operations so that we can do better? You know, like, because I only sold 10 candles today, I thought, you know, like we had 20 customers, I thought I'd at least get 16. You know, that's someone who walks in and says, yes, but, yes, and, yes, how. That to me is really important. I don't really know how I got so off on that tangent, but that's something I really believe in, is that in a business, while you should believe in it, you should also challenge it from time to time.
All right, Brice, well, since you're there and you started on the trends, because that was going to be my question, but this is for each of you. How do you balance staying true to your craft with keeping up with current market trends, and is there any you refuse to follow?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah. You started.
So how do you stay true to your brand and follow trends if you want to? Is that the question?
It says, how do you balance staying true to your craft with keeping up with the current market trends, and are there any you refuse to follow?
So here's how you do it. You pay attention to your customer, the people who are walking into your business and saying, I believe in this brand so much that I'm going to give you my money. You pay attention to them, you take care of them, you create an experience for them. That is, you know, Reis hit on it earlier, that experiential stuff, guys, it's so important on every level, from the time that customer sees your brand to the time they walk away with a bag. You know, that to me is one of the ultimate things you can do as a brand. They will tell you what the trends are. They will tell you what trends to follow and what ones not to. They may lead you astray sometimes. Like I've seen brands that have nailed it, like exactly what the customers were asking for. And then the customers were like, oh, well, that was yesterday. So, you can follow a trend by releasing a collection that's on trend. You can follow a trend by, doing some marketing around a trend. You don't have to sacrifice the brand for an Instagram post that's on trend.
Right.
But to build an entire brand around a trend, like, trends, they go like this, and then they completely fall off. It's not a steady burnout. They fall off. And I see it so frequently. When you see a trend, guys, it's like the Devil Wears Prada. It happened 12 months before. It was made, those decisions were made. Those decisions were made by very particular people in very particular rooms, and they were the ones that said, this is going to be the trend for the next 12 months. These baggy clothes that everyone's wearing and things like that, and if you're wearing them, great. I am not one of the baggy clothes, like 90s wear thing. I wear what I feel is comfortable to me, but that trend was decided well in advance. And it was decided in rooms that most of us will never walk into. And sometimes it's decided by chance. Like you can have something go viral on Instagram that all of a sudden overnight is a trend. And it's just like, oh, shoot, well, how do I catch up with that? And if you're going into production, by the time something's super popular, you have missed the boat. And you will wind up with a lot of product that will never move unless you just give it away.
Wow. Okay, Reis, you want to answer for us?
So I don't follow the trends. I think Brice kind of started to touch on it about when he's talking about these decisions were made far in advance. I like to walk shows. I like to walk expos. Like if there's an expo in the tri-state area, I'm going to it. And mostly like there's like packaging ones, and I've met so many people through that to help me upgrade my packaging every time I release something. I also had to come to terms that I'm not into social media the way that a lot of people are. And for a long time, I thought I kept telling myself, I know I have to. And everybody else around me saying that, you have to, if you want your brand to be successful. But I think that is like falling into the vortex of people's, boredom, right? Like again, going to knowing what your brand is and what success means to you. And when I say brand, we have to think about what brand really means, and it's a lifestyle. It's when you hear this name, the ethos of everything that accompanies that place, whether it's the company, the owner, the artist, or whatever. Like branding isn't just creating a business. That's entrepreneurship. Building a brand is something really different, and you want to stand out. And so for a long time, like I did not, like even with BCMC, like I'm in the Facebook group, and I'll check in every once in a while. I'm not, unfortunately, one of the most active people because I've had to come to terms with limiting what I'm exposing myself to stay authentic to what the brand it is that I'm trying to build and present. And when you're following trends, you're in that capitalistic mindset of just, and everyone isn't an entrepreneur, right? I think we've learned that the pandemic had the most businesses be created, and now we're seeing a lot of those not make it. And it could be because of the business, it could be because of the product, or it could be because the owner is not meant to be an entrepreneur. Our country loves to tell us that everyone, having your business and doing this is great, but for some people, having 9 to 5 is better, right? So not following these trends, knowing like how to to navigate how much stimulus you're taking in. And again, instead of going to Instagram where like the decisions again was made so long ago, and you really want to do this, go to like the expos and the trade shows where they're showing things for the next 6 months, 12 months, whatever. So you're seeing technology for packaging or fragrances or whatever before the market. When it hits your social media and you're following those trends, again, it's already on pass. I'm getting emails now about the color trends for 2026 and 2027, while some people are looking at the trends in the Instagram for 2025. The industry is past that. So
yeah, guys, if you're using Instagram, you're a consumer. You are literally already consuming a product. You are not a producer. You know, you don't have to be on trend. Sorry, Reis. But you know, I look at social media as a tool where you can actually kind of get some feedback. You can put things out there. You know, like Reis was saying, I'm not the most active member, like looking at everything BCMC does. I get back to my emails, I get back to my text messages, I talk to people that are in the process of producing. Like I'm on the backside of things. And then every once in a while, like I don't think I've turned, obviously I couldn't turn on my social media for like 3 weeks because of everything that was going on with it. But you know, I try not to get on it. I think in 2016, it was right after the last election, and I don't need to bring politics up, but it was right after the last election, and I grew up in Wyoming, and I then moved to California, like a super red state and a super blue state. And every time I'd put a post up, my friends would kill each other on my social media, like literally good people on both sides going at it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I got off it completely for 4 years. And when I came back, it was a different animal. I mean, the amount of consumerism on there now, it is literally all it is. You will fall so quickly behind if that's what you're paying attention to do your research.
Okay. Your turn, Raffi. I already know what you're going to say, but have at it.
First, I'm going to say, I think this is strictly my opinion. You have to be on social media, consume it like with veracity. You really do. You have to consume it with veracity because you have to understand how to dispense your message to the people who are watching it today in the manner in which it has to be delivered. That's just my feeling. So you really have to know insane nuances on every platform, that the way Pinterest works, the way YouTube works, the mindset is so different in each platform. If you don't know the mindset of these platforms, you will not communicate the way the people are expecting me to communicate it with them. So first of all, I'll say, if you're doing it for inspiration, wrong, you're right. You're totally.
Yeah. But for sales, it is very important, guys, because you want to be putting out the product that's being consumed. Right. So I thank you for making that delineation, because you are absolutely right about that.
Right. I mean, it's absurdly important to be superbly on trend when it comes to content creation for the consumer to be able to, and for the algorithm to show you, so you can get the lottery, the jackpot, the Oprah of the, what do you call, going viral and so forth. Yeah. But for, I said this in, at the lecture, my attitude is like, I'm like the Acela train. This is why I think of myself. I'm gonna leave at 9:02. I'm gonna arrive at 12:45. I'm not gonna stop anywhere. I'm gonna be in Boston at this hour. I'm gonna have a fantastic experience. I'm gonna have a first class lounge. I'm just gonna be quiet. I'm gonna define who I am. Exactly. Once I define what the brand is, then the customer will find me. But until you know who you are, the customer is lost. So I don't go to shows. I don't go to anything anymore. I do go, if I go to shows, it is to explore technical know-how, not necessarily to figure out like, hey, I want to find a factory that knows how to do injection molding in a certain, like for instance, we have a reed bottle that is being made, and it took me months and so much money to develop it. But the injection molding was so complicated you know, and I must have traveled all over the world to figure this out. And I found one company that can deliver the fine detail on plastic PETG mold, that I can get that beautiful artwork on the plastic mold, but it had to be precise, because plastic molds, you can't do that. You know, they become either too brittle, they break apart, and so I think you have to know the reason why you're going, but you know, it's like a wave is inevitably going to crash. You're right. A trend is going to crash. I don't want to be on a trend either. So you know, you figure, at the end of the day, you have to figure out yourself, because the minute you figure out yourself, you speak a language, and the person listening to you understands who you are and likes you or hates you, and that's all that matters.
That is so true. You will always have likers, you will always have haters, you will have people that are afraid of you, you will have people that respect you, you will have people that love you. It's all about how you use that and how you use it to your advantage.
You have to be okay with that. You have to embrace it, and you have to welcome it. You have to say, listen, you know, this is what I do. This is how I do it. This is my price. This is my process. These are my rules, and I'm here for you inside of that context.
Yeah, even the most lovable people in the world have haters, guys.
Oh, yeah.
It is all part of the game.
Bulletproof vest.
Yeah, you do. Especially when you get onto the marketing side of things. And you know, I can't tell you how many reviews I would go through on work I've done in the past, and how many like 1 stars here, 2 stars there, or this disgruntled, or that, and you know, if it's consistent, there's probably a problem that needs to be addressed. However, if it's a one-off, you know, you cannot please everyone every time. You know, and here's the deal: if you are going to follow a trend, if you are going to pay attention to social media in the production aspect of things, be prepared to move things quickly. I would say that is, if you are going to do it, you must be very nimble. You know, limited runs are a great way to do that. Doing something that's collaborative is a great way to do that, because then you have multiple outlets, multiple sales channels. You know, Raffi, I really appreciate you making the delineation with social media between production and with sales. It's not a production tool; it is a sales tool.
So the sale, you know, it's such a powerful sales tool. I mean, it is. You know, you got 330 million people in this country. You know, you can get to a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and if you're nimble enough, you can actually do some producing by paying attention to social media trends. But that is the rarity. Like, you have to be at the very cusp of right when it comes out. You know, there are big companies that pay millions of dollars to marketing companies, millions of dollars, to be on top of trends like that. And those people do nothing but that all day long. It is a job in and of itself.
I want to tell you something. We went through this just recently. So we have even though we do our own creative and marketing, we always have an outside agency kind of like looking at what we do, and kind of just looking, because outside agencies have 50 other brands they're dealing with, and I want to be in on those 50 other brands sort of like know-how that they're developing.
Yeah.
So here we are, we're doing the Facebook, and all of a sudden the past month it wasn't performing, and one particular thing wasn't performing. And I said to the staff, I said, look, let's take this one video, right? On one Facebook ad, take the video and create from the same 59 seconds, same content, chop it up in different, and create 10 separate different videos with different beginnings, different middles, and different ends. And then we lump that up into one ad set, and then we feed it to Facebook so that it can begin to show, and we begin to figure out which beginning is performing and where the algorithm is sending and what the customer is like, what they want to see. So we begin to learn that you know, that's, you know, 59 seconds is 59 seconds, which means every second you can lose the customer. That means every second you got to keep that journey going, right? It's next, 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 next. So if you don't know how to keep that journey going for them to watch all of it, you're going to lose them in the first 3.5 seconds. So I find social media as a tool, like you said, ultra important to really have a good understanding, because You know, building a retail store comes much, much later in brand building, and when you're in a right place. A lot of people, this is my belief, by the way, I always look at $330 million, 330 million people as my storefront on a web. So if I'm going to open a store, it's going to be a neighborhood situation, or I'm going to have my neighborhood the entire country. So unless you saturate the country, then you gotta know when to open a store.
Yep.
So back to you guys.
I agree.
What advice, this is for all of you guys, what advice would you give any males wanting to get into the candle industry? But since you guys really didn't have that kind of pushback, you didn't really experience, but if somebody is trying to get into it and they're feeling away because it's usually in the eyes female dominated, what would you say to them?
So, it goes exactly to Reis's point of being in love with your craft. If you are wanting to do fragrance, fall in love with it. Like, really get to know it. Know the ins and the outs of what you're doing. If you become a professional in what you're doing, nobody can tell you otherwise. Even if you're doing it your own way, people can tell you you're doing it wrong. People can tell you you're not going to do it. You're not going to make any progress going down that path. But if you become a professional in what you're doing, nobody can tell you you're wrong.
Were you asking the question specifically men getting into the candle business because it's woman dominated?
Because that's what it seems like. It's not woman dominated like that, but it seems like, they're a little apprehensive when they're getting into it because it seems that that's what people experience.
I don't know. My experience is like, even in the fragrance world, it's not women dominated. It's mostly men dominated. It's very male dominated industry. But it goes back to, are you ready to own a business? Are you really ready to own a business? Do you know what it takes to run a business? Are you prepared for everything business related? It's a breed. It's a breed of personality. You need to be of certain breed to have a brand, to build a brand.
I mean, that just goes back to what I was saying about the marketing. It's the marketing that leads people to believe that it's female dominated, when in reality, like Raffi's saying, there's a lot of male energy and it's a lot of entrepreneurship. It's a lot of misconceptions and labels. So, kind of taking a step back and looking at what it is you're doing versus what marketing is. It's that whole, again, back to the production and the social media. It all kind of ties in together. There are people have belief systems around different things. And it's why I say, become a professional at what you do. It's like what Raffi's saying with being an entrepreneur. It's like what Reis is saying with being an artist. Like, there's a difference between being a creative and being a business person. It's very rare that will be married in a single individual. And if it's not, then you have to find partners who have what you lack. You must do that because you can't just have a vision and no sales. And no business acumen, because you won't have anything to sell. You cannot be just a business person with no creativity, because the stuff you sell is all going to wind up bottom shelf, back barrel. It's a very delicate balancing act, and not always delicate. Sometimes you can force something through, and it does well. But there are different aspects to the business that you will have to pay attention to. So, again, guys, I think back to the topic of being a male in the fragrance industry, there are stereotypes, and then there's marketing. Not falling into that is how you can do it, and being a professional.
Yeah, but most of the famous perfumers are male,
right? And straight males.
Majority.
Straight males.
Yeah. Straight males. Yes, majority. If you look at Givaudan, Firmenich, whatever, you're looking at all male, mostly 70%, 75% male. Now, in the past 5 to 10 years, female perfumers are coming of age.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
now. I mean, you look at Frederick Ma, go down the list of Frederick Ma,
Yep.
all male.
No, it is definitely a misconception that it is, and maybe it's a candle misconception, because in the perfume world, it really has been male dominated for a very long time.
That's even changing.
Yeah.
If you ask me 2020, what the male to female customer ratio, I can tell you all my numbers, 85% female, 15% male. Take a guess what it is today. It's 45-55.
Yeah.
And guess of the two, who's the bigger spender?
The man is always the bigger spender.
The man is the bigger spender.
And they will do it simply because that label says, I spent a lot of money on that candle.
Guys, when I found that little cranny, by the way, marketing went to male.
Yeah. That's been my experience as well.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is.
Well, I'll tell you, female, and because I go on social media live all the time and I ask these questions, and I really ask my customers these questions, they will tell me, female has 8,000 things she's got to buy. She's got to do her hair, her nails, her whatever. What does a man spend money on? When he finds a candle that he likes and makes him feel a certain way.
Am I allowed to answer that in this forum?
Go ahead. I'm just regurgitating what my customers tell me, so I'm not at fault for anything here. But the reality is, men tell me that they can't get enough of it, so they keep buying and buying and buying. And when it comes to the female, their behavior is it's just another buy of another thing for them, right? But for men, because they don't buy much, they don't spend money on anything.
Raffi, I think you're speaking to overall patterns. Obviously everyone's individual, but the overall pattern, you are correct in that. And there are characteristics to both genders that do fall into certain categories in many, many ways. Like what I noticed, to your point, is that the customer base has shifted from predominantly female to very well balanced, but the fragrances have also shifted into the masculine as well. And the marketing has been much more targeted towards a neutral audience. It's no longer the Chanel commercials on TV that you see with Julia Roberts running across the screen. That's the only way that fragrance is sold. Now you have the Old Spice commercials with the guys riding in on a horse and all the different body washes, and all of a sudden there are coconuts and pretty women. Like,
what about the guy with the axe in the woods? Did you see him?
Oh, yes. Is that like Dr. Squatch or something like that?
He sells millions of dollars.
I know. Oh, yes. With the wood chopping and the tattoos. Yes.
Yes.
Of course I've seen him. Hello.
Who hasn't seen him?
How could I not see that?
No, but I'm only talking statistics. I'm not trying to pigeonhole anything. I'm just saying, hey, my stats have changed. My behavior has changed.
It's true.
But I'm going to say this as well, that when it comes to fragrance composition, by the way, even when it comes to floral, men do love it. Yeah. They do love. It's not ouds, it's not musk only, but you got to put the vetiver or the patchouli or something on a very floral with a fireside combo. When you can create that sort of like combination, it becomes a home run on both fronts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the candles, the misconception is the same as with fashion. You know what I'm saying? And so you see the wave one direction. And again, I think it's what you're saying, Brice, about the marketing and what we're exposed to. And so unless you're in the industry and you see what's going on, then what's who's doing the moving and the shaking. But if you look from the outside, you really can't tell.
Right. And, again, that goes back to branding. These companies will lead you to believe that they have certain practices by putting out marketing that says, oh, we have these practices, and we, like our company is run in this way, but it may not be that way on the inside. So, you must understand that a lot of what companies put out is what they want you to see. You don't get to see the internal operations. So it does lead to misconceptions, and it does lead to scenarios that are not always what they appear. I am a firm believer in the fact that brands should practice what they preach, and exactly what Raffi was saying. If it can't go on the front of the New York Post, then you shouldn't be doing that. You need to be comfortable enough with yourself, especially in this day and age, guys, because information does travel so fast. It travels so fast, and everyone is going to have a different take on it. So, you are always leaving a legacy, even if you don't intend to.
On that note, we have embraced a policy for us that bad or good, we announce it to the public.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. If candles catch on fire, the minute it catches on fire, I tell people. I post it automatically. When somebody calls me, oh, I didn't want to post it. I'm like, no, post it, and I'll repost it. I want people to understand. I want them to be educated. I want them to understand what goes on. Something, breaks. Let the people, because when you expose all that, there's something, you create a certain level of transparency that then you create trust.
Yeah.
And those are the dots that connect. So today, social media could be, if you're treated as a place to hide from and tell a fake story, Brice, you're going to get caught.
Yeah.
You're going to get caught. Somebody's going to snitch on you.
1,000%.
Yeah. So you're better off just letting it be out there. And because people are human at the end of the day, like no one is going to, they say you're judged by your peers in a court that with 12 that have no idea what the law is, yet they have their fate in their hands. Why? Because they have a soul, they have something, they have a gut feeling. They can read a liar from a cheat from an honest person. They can read that. People can read a liar. No matter how good you are, eventually you'll get caught.
I knew an individual who called it glamoring people, and I was just like, no, it's lying. it's not glamour, it's lying. So.
Oh, that's funny.
And Reis, I would like to ask you, what advice would you give men wanting to enter into the candle business right now, or the industry?
Just go for it. I think it's profound to say, because I really don't really see it as an obstacle. Again, if you're going the two routes that I see, which is either business route, does it make sense? Do you have your financial, like your business plan, like if you're gonna go the business route, your numbers and your paperwork should let you know if this is something that's gonna be profitable or not. If you're gonna go to the artist route, then do you love it? Like, is it fulfilling? Is it giving you everything you want, whether or not 100 people buy it, one person buys it, or it ends up in a magazine or something? Like, so if you're that interested, that thought is in your mind, and you're wanting to do it, something that you love to do, it's not cheap. A lot of people think candle making is cheap and easy, and it's a lot of testing and things involved in that. So again, knowing what success looks like for you, I think it looks different for everybody. Some people may want to, shoot for the Hermes and model their business after that. And some people are fine with creating their own legacy and with intention. So if you want to do it, just go for it.
Guys, there's a million paths. There's a million paths.
Mm-hmm.
Brice, you touched on legacy, and I want to ask all of you this question. What impact do you hope to leave on the industry for your customers? And is there a legacy you want to build through your candles?
Oof, that's a tough question for me this year. I I spent 18 years at the same company and building nonstop, just 120-hour weeks. Like right now, guys, I would be taking down so many Halloween decorations and putting up so many Christmas decorations, moving furniture, doing inventory, like doing all that type of stuff. Like that's it. It was really difficult for me to walk away this summer. And I am so grateful for everything I learned, and so grateful to be able to pass that knowledge on to other people, and so grateful to have had the incredible exposure to so many fascinating things, and the way that my experience translates into so many other industries. But if I were to say, in terms of leaving a legacy, you know, at the end of the day, I want to leave the world better than I found it. Just like with everything I've done, I've come across something, I'm like, great, how do I make this better? You know, and the proof is in the pudding, in many ways. And I find that if I don't focus necessarily on how grand my legacy can be, but on how I can affect the day-to-day, it leaves my work better. You know, obviously I have goals. Obviously I have my sights on, you know, doing some awesome things that really can help a lot of individuals and creating really beautiful atmospheres in the process. But my focus is not completely on that. It's on how am I making decisions today and taking each step in stride in order to attain that. So, you know, I try not to think about the legacy I leave behind too much. And obviously that's a difficult question this year because I had to walk away from something like that. But I will say that when I'm focusing on the purpose and when I'm focusing on the steps that I'm taking now, it tends to do pretty incredible things, especially when you lead with kindness and integrity.
But you have left a legacy, by the way, because you can't think of Kendall delirium without thinking of you.
Yeah. Well, and
I mean,
I'm sure at some point that will change. Like, I'm sure at some point they will have built their own new legacy. I have been erased from the social media, so that was fun.
I saw that. I saw that. That was not cool.
It was cute. It was real cute. But
Not
you know,
cool.
like that's what it's how they're doing business now. And you know, I'm moving on.
Good for you. That's the way. That's the right attitude. That's a healthy attitude.
Yeah.
Very healthy attitude.
And I wish them nothing but success.
There you go.
Reis, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go. It's just that's part of something again that I wanted to create my own situation, is not having to work for other people's vision, brands, or whatever. I connect with Brice a lot on what he says about his work ethic and how his mind operates on the day-to-day in that store level. This is something that I really love to do. But as much outreach or as many good ideas as I did for some companies, it was never like reciprocated, right? It was never the satisfaction that I get from my accomplishments that I do for my business. I've never gotten at other companies. So like my legacy, when I think about that, and even that has changed, because I think in the beginning it was to make something or create something that was better than the rest. And by that I mean that was range. It was better than the Bed Bath & Beyond, Targets, whatever, because of the ingredients, better than the Diptyques and the Tridons because of the connection I'm making with the people that I interact with, being able to have you know, people be able to reach me via Instagram or email. you know, you send an email or something to Trudeau, like who's answering that? So my legacy has kind of changed because now I although I do want to make a statement in the fragrance industry as a gay Black man, and there's not that many of us in the sphere, right? In the fragrance foundation, in the awards, in the Sephora, in all the like in all of that, right? There's a lot of politics that is in the fragrance industry. And for some of the people asking about like working with perfumeries and perfumers, that is a whole thing. And that says the way that you maneuver that will say a lot about the brand that you have. So my legacy, or what I'm trying to chase, I think will continuously evolve as I grow and my wants change, but I do know that the way that our society is, the way that our country is ran, it doesn't leave me in a hopeful space. So my legacy in this particular time frame is to again make that stamp as a gay Black man in the fragrance industry, but to also take care of myself and my family. And so if, reaching certain milestones is makes sense, I'm going to shoot for it. I'm going to shoot my shot, but also knowing what it is that I want. How far do I want to take this? And again, if and Brice is seeing this, if it means having to go in a different route that you intended, then so be it. Then so be it. So again, is going to constantly change, but it's always going to be for excellence or self-care.
Nice.
I love it.
We've actually written this down because we've made it part of our agenda. It was a great question. What is the legacy of the brand? Because we have kids, and what are we leaving behind, basically? And everybody says, oh, you want to leave a business behind. So we wrote down the following. When I say we, I wrote down the following, that a brand is nothing but a relationship. The product is almost a conduit between you and the customer and the people that I call community. And what we wrote down and what we kind of look at all the time is this, where we look at the customer and we say, this guy's been flying economy all day. I want to give him an experience of first class, because once he has an experience of first class, it's very hard to go back to economy, right? So that experience is what we want to give them. We want to elevate their experience. And today it could be Kendall, tomorrow it could be whatever, but the brand stands for that forever, that we're going to take the experience of that customer and make sure that they, in their own home, with their hard-earned money, they feel a sense of deserving for the money they earned, that they come, when they're with us, they feel elevated. That's the, that if I can encapsulate that experience, that and make it part of the brand, then I know that there's a huge level of loyalty with my customer, huge, because now they have all the pistons, sort of like, their commitment to us, their loyalty to us, their repetition to us, their dependability. When we launch another product, they know it's going to perform, whatever it is. Our legacy that we want to leave behind in a company is to say that this company builds, makes the person who's involved in that brand, they elevate their experiences, they feel better, they look better, it's a behavioral thing, right? If you make your bed every morning, it's a process. It's part of a bigger picture. We just want to be a very small part in their life where it's an added plus. It doesn't matter how. They define the how. We put it all out there. They define the how. And all out there meaning, like you said, if it's the packaging, better this, better that, whatever, however we're defining it. But a brand is nothing more than a community. It's not a product. So you got to always remember that. It's always a community. So the legacy is leaving a community that has been exposed and feels that this brand made me feel better. Wrote it down. We actually wrote that down, so I know, you know, I can articulate it very well.
Love it.
Yeah. Right, and we've had some questions in the chat, but I think you've answered most of the questions. But we have one last question. This has been great, but and some of you have touched on this. But how do you personally define success as a candle maker, or what would need to happen for you to feel like you just truly made it in this industry? And I think this is a question we also get, you know, from our members. So
I'm going to jump in because mine is short.
okay.
There's no arrival. There's no arrival date. There's no moment that you say, I've arrived, because every time it changes. There's no arrival. It's part of, it's like until you die, you just keep getting better and better and better. And that's really it. You know, be it in your execution, relationship, finances, you know, getting, growing, you have to embrace the fact that there is no real arrival date. Because, you know, people say, when I get $1 million, I'm going to feel fantastic. Well, you get the $1 million and you don't. All your problems are still there. They're all in your head. So in business, there is really no arrival date. So therefore, you have to love the day-to-day. That's arrival. Embracing the day-to-day, embracing that incremental, that little, oh, you know, thank God I got it. And then celebrating failures. That's another thing. You know, they say, if you got a great account, you light up a cigar. Well, then if you lose $1 million, you should light up a cigar too, because you learned a lesson in some form, right? You got to light the cigar either way. You got to learn how to be that human that says, I'm celebrating every single day. I'm moving forward. I'm doing these things. I'm just pushing ahead, and it's my journey. Therefore, there's no rival date. There's no real success date. Even when you sell it, you're depressed because now your baby's gone.
Yeah.
Right? So there's
no kidding.
Right?
Yeah, I would echo that statement 100%, Raffi. You know, it's success is only a measure of your own making. So I would say that to try to measure it by someone else's success, or as I was saying to Reis earlier, I hope the right hawk at the right time is the one that swoops in. You know, that can be a measure of success. How happy you are at the end of the day can be a measure of success. How much you were able to accomplish can be a measure of success. It's all the metrics that you use that are going to define it. So really, that's a very personal one. And you can think you are at the top of your game and that you've reached the pinnacle of success, whether it's, you know, like managing a very successful retail shop and doing things exactly the way that you think they need to be done. And then all of a sudden the next day, everything changes. You know,
that's not a failure.
It's not. And that's the amazing and incredible thing, is that it feels like failure. It does for a hot second, you know, and if it's all about how you take a look at it, you say, okay, this is what happened. This is how I'm going to pick things up. This is how I'm going to move on. That's another success. That is another way you can measure it. You know, and I hate speaking to it as you, but what I'm saying is that in my definition of what success is, it's all about how I am creating my definition of success. Sorry, my husband just walked in. Hi, guys.
Hello,
Jason.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet you.
There's a Japanese proverb. You know the story with the father who has a son and a horses? Do you guys know the story?
No.
This is a good one because it goes to show you, like, nothing is as glamorous or bad as you think it is. Yeah. And that's to you, Brice. Father comes in, his son is out in the field, and all of a sudden, you know, he's out there. They're poor. It's a poor family. All of a sudden, you know, the horse, just a random horse comes in, and you know, and they goes into his stable, and all the people come in, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so lucky. Your son is so lucky. You guys had nothing, and now you have a horse." The father says, let's see. So one day the kid's riding the horse and he falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And then a week later, the military calls for a draft, and the kid's, because he's got a broken leg, he can't go. So all everyone goes, oh, you're so lucky, he can't go. Yeah. Now he broke his leg. You know, they come in like, oh, sorry, I didn't tell the story right. he breaks his leg. They all come to him and say, oh my God, how bad that he broke his leg. And then like he says, let's see. And then the draft comes in. They all come in because he can't go. And the moral of the story is every incident that happened to this kid, the father was like, let me see. And you don't know what's a real positive and a negative. You have to kind of like take it and like sort of celebrate the day. You really have to know how to celebrate the day. Yeah. Celebrate it and just like take it for what it is. Yeah. Take it for what it is. Just,
I mean, a nice measure of success would be $100 million in the bank, but who's counting?
You play the lottery? I do.
I still play the lottery. It's great.
There's an app for the lottery now. Did you know that?
No.
Yep.
I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that.
Jackpot, baby.
My husband did. He went like, what? Wait, what? App for the lottery.
Powerball, $54 million. It's $2.
And then I think Reis, if you wanted to answer, and then we do have a question for Reis in the chat as well before we end.
Exactly what the gentleman said. The goalpost is always moving. You know, and like as Brice said, both of them, like don't look at certain things as failures all the time. If I looked at the Oprah team walking away those years ago as like my product wasn't anything, or you know, I wouldn't be in the space that I am now. And I've gotten some stores that I've always loved as a customer or a stylist, interior designing, and I've said no to some. And so you have to know like what works, well, at least for me and my brand, you have to know what works with your alignment and your ethos. So that goalpost is as America is always changing, as opportunities come and go. So I think again, it's just really important to know your brand, and what it is that you're looking to release into the world. Those goalposts are always going to change. And as I said in the previous question, my vision of success or legacy is constantly changing as I reach a lot of these milestones. So I don't know. Today, Oprah was my milestone, my thing of success, right? But come January 2025, that'll be in the past while they're looking for new product and what's going to be on my horizon. That's one of the really exciting things. And again, any guys looking to get into the industry, is go for it. It is so rewarding if it's something that you really care about doing, which I would assume you do if you're still in this call. But yeah. There was another question?
No,
yeah, there was one in the chat.
Before you continue, Reis and Brice, maybe you guys can help me out with something. A little goalpost from me. I would love to be in Farfetch. I cannot figure out how to get in there.
I know, right?
Anybody know anyone? I have done everything under the sun. I'm sorry?
There are always calls that can be made.
I have tried. You know what I did? I went. They have a place on. They're a British company. They got bought out by an Asian company, but they were here at one point, and I broke in. Like they have locked doors, but I kind of snuck in with someone else to get to them. Can't get into Farfetch, so that would be that would be a milestone for me. If anybody can help, that would be highly appreciated. If you know what
so the question in the chat for Reis is, how do you consistently balance connecting with your audience and making candles by hand, as well as being the visionary?
How do I do it? What I like to do. Um,
120 hours a week doesn't feel like 20 hours. You love it.
there's, I mean, like I said, I like, okay, you know, you leave your 9 to 5 thinking that you're gonna get this freedom, right? But then you end up doing the 12 to 12 or whatever, like the saying is, right? You're gonna get, you're only gonna get what you put in. Like I was my own press. I have hired press PR in the past. But like all of this Oprah stuff has been me and my outreach. So knowing like you guys just if that's what you want to do, and that's why I say not everybody is an entrepreneur, it's fit to be an entrepreneur, right? Because I always hated that like they always gave the highlight or the praise to the people who wanted to be the doctor and the lawyers and like those big you know roles, but and then the entrepreneur always had like that stereotype of the crazy uncle or cousin who only come around when they need some money or you know shady. It's like wait, we have to wear 20 hats, you know. But I love learning and I love nature. I love going out and traveling and again talking to people, whether it's about my business or not. There's so much to learn out there, and that's why I mentioned like the way that you know our country is right now is just unfortunate because I do envision and want a time where everyone can just we can chat just the way that we are here. Guys, different backgrounds, different experiences in the same field, but is offering something completely different. And that's how I'm able to do it because I like to do it. I like to create these pieces that enter someone's home, that they find love and enjoyment from. Um, and connect whether something's going right or wrong, as Raffi was saying, like I want to know and I want to be able to address that. Um, and so that's I'm sure at some point, you know, hopefully it'll be too much, but what's Law Roach, the stylist, fashion stylist, celebrity stylist, he just released a book and something that he said he left his job, stopped styling probably like a year or some change ago now. Now he only does Zendaya, Celine Dion. But something that he said was he reached the pinnacle or he reached like what he thought was the goal. And when he looked at what was next, what would go beyond that, it was just more work. So again, knowing like what success means to you and where you want to go with this, it's totally fine if you are not trying to have your candles in stores. You could be totally fine doing markets and you know selling, creating your e-commerce store and just selling that way. So knowing how you want, where you want your business to go, and I know that I have a direction, but my morals mean more than anything. Being able to talk to people, connect with people, hear feedback, and that's where my trends are coming from, right? Knowing, hearing what it is that they want, but it's not in the market, or what it is that they want. It is in the market, but it's so expensive that if they are able to purchase it, then they don't burn it. They can't burn it. It's too expensive. Now this candle becomes like, you know, you're like a prisoner to this candle now because it's sitting there beautiful in your home, but you don't want to burn it. And now 2 years gone by, the fragrance is all unbalanced, a ton of dust in it. So I like all of that component of creating, pushing my brand forward, connecting with people. And if we ever get to that point where like I'm not able to do it, then I will be asking myself, does my future, my vision, um, is going in that direction where I am taking on more work? And even though you're hiring people, some people get to the level where they can hire staff and have help that way. You're still doing a lot of work. yes, you're not maybe doing the mundane things, but building a brand and sustaining a brand that people are interested in is a lot of work. So when I get to that point, I'll decide maybe it's not even fragrance anymore. Maybe I get into body fine fragrance. Maybe we switch it up and start doing furniture. That's the beauty of my brand. And that's why I mentioned earlier about not ever right now seeing myself selling refills, because for a long time I didn't even think of us necessarily as a candle brand or myself as a candle maker. I'm a designer, and if I decide to meet somebody who has a vineyard in Sonoma Valley and connect with them, and now we have a line of Reese-filled wine, and we're into, then that's the space that I'll be in. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you guys so much. Do y'all have any last words for us before we end? We do appreciate you all. We love you each so much. So we appreciate you so much. Brice, Raffi, Reis, y'all are like my brothers from another mother. So thank you so much.
I think my closing thought is what it always is I am so grateful to be able to be a part of a community that is a group of candle makers, and to be able to have made a living, a passion, a purpose, a modicum of success in an industry that's so beautiful. It's amazing to me that I get to wake up some days and say that I'm in the fragrance industry, like something that was never a part of my story, but that it's so cool that it is. That to me is a success.
Right.
Jules, I have you guys to thank for more than anything bringing us together.
Yeah.
That is for me, if you don't do your thing, I would be still, watching, maybe doing whatever I've got to do. But the fact that I'm here, I got to meet Reis, I got to meet Brice, I know you guys, those connections that you go and make, ultimately, is precious. For me, it's precious, because I find that, we end up, through all of us, we end up helping other people, right? There's a lot of people watching. You go out of your way to create this, and for that, really, that's very special, because other people need it. There's a lot of people who listen and they grab one little thing from what we've said, and we don't even realize it.
Right.
Whatever. Sometimes we say things so casually that a light bulb goes on, but it would never have happened had you not created this forum. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
1000%.
Mm-hmm.
You.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
And by the way, I'm going to throw one more thing. I've always had this attitude where I say, if anyone needs anything, any sourcing, any introduction, my books are open. If anybody needs, I don't know, anything, you just need sourcing, marketing ideas, and my mobile number everyone has. So you're more than welcome. My preferential the preferred treatment is text me first. Let me step away and give you a call. I make myself available instantaneously for someone who needs some help. It doesn't matter, like sourcing, methodology, marketing, dollars, financing, whatever it is. And everyone's got, I don't have all the answers to everything, but whatever I have, I'm happy to share it.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a great evening. Thank you, BCMC family, for watching.
So grateful, guys. So grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, we're giving you guys so much love in the chat. They love you guys.
Yeah. Have a good evening. And
I'm gonna let you all go to bed. It's just getting to dinner time for me.
All right.
Good night.
Nice to meet you, Brice. Nice to meet you, Reis.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.
That was awesome.